So, in 1947, Jackie Robinson became the first African American to play in Major League Baseball. However, before he began playing in the major leagues, he had to start somewhere, and that someone was in the Negro Leagues of America, which is what I'll be talking to you today about. I'll be talking to you about the Negro Leagues and as to why they're so important. And my theme of this speech is that the Negro Leagues serve as a bigger purpose than just a league for African Americans to rally up and play baseball in. It was really one of the first focal points that that broke the racial barriers in the United States and was kind of that beacon of light for African Americans in reaching equality and a brighter future. So today, firstly, I'll talk to you about the origins of the Negro Leagues, how it came into existence. Secondly, I'll talk to you about how the league itself and its players influenced the culture of baseball on the field. And thirdly, I'll talk to you about how the league and its players, again, meant more and symbolized more than just a baseball league, and how they influenced racial issues in the United States. So a little background before I go into the origins. According to William Rubenstein of History Today, published in 2003, the Negro African Americans were actually allowed to play in Major League Baseball's minor leagues team in the 19th century. It was up until 1890 where they were kicked out of the minor leagues due to racial tensions, and really with that they were kicked out of any and all professional and organized baseball in the United States. That lasted a few decades up until 1920, where a man named Lew Foster, who was a key figure in black baseball at the time, had the resources and influence to create a team for African American players, which became known as the Negro League. And the league experienced mediocre success. It carried on that way for a few years up until the start of World War I, where due to players being shipped out to the war and the financial crisis, it just couldn't sustain itself and the league dismantled. So what was a bright future for African Americans on the field quickly evaporated up until 1930, where the league was again rejuvenated and found itself. And the second coming of the Negro League was really important because from 1930 onward, that's where a lot of people really focused the start of the Negro League on, because the second coming, which is much more successful and much more impactful than the first time the Negro League was born. So now that we have a grasp of how the Negro League came into existence and how it started, we can focus on, as I said, how the league itself and how its players began influencing the culture of baseball on the field. And if you think about what makes a league successful, it's the players, right? You have attractive players, you have successful players who are good at what they do. Your league begins to see results because fans want to get tickets to come see those players. They want to, they want to sit in the stands and watch their players. And the Negro League had tremendous athletes such as Leroy Page, Jackie Robinson, Hank Aaron, who experienced great success on the field and whose fan bases were ever growing. And it really started, you can see the results in the Negro League from the 1930s onward into the 1940s. And in the 1940s, that's where it gets interesting. According to Zachary Reimer of Bleacher Report, published in 2013, the Negro League had an East and West All-Star game, which is like any All-Star game today in sports. It was the best pitted against the best. However, the Negro League had to compete with Major League Baseball. So they would schedule this All-Star game at the same time as the World Series of baseball. And the surprising thing is that the All-Star game was outshining Major League Baseball's World Series. So if you think about that, this inferior league who didn't have the cultural influence and the history and the funding that Major League Baseball had was outshining America's #1 sport at this time. So it really speaks volumes as to how far the Negro League came and the accomplishments it was achieving from the 1930s into the 1940s. And that was also due to players like Jackie Robinson. Again, according to Reimer, Jackie's first season in the major leagues, 1947, he won Rookie of the Year. He would go on to win an MVP, and he would go on eventually to win a World Series. So it really made these major league scouts look at the Negro League and the players that were a product of the league and take a second look at them and say, these players really can compete with us. They can play in our league. But again, it was more than just baseball. The Negro League was really a symbol for African Americans and for the entire nation in terms of racial issues. I'm sure many of you have heard the term baseball is America's pastime, and why is that so? It's because back then America really put it on a pedestal in regards to sports. They viewed it was the #1 sport. It was really what football is today. So when the success of the Negro League came along and was outshining the World Series, it was a surprise to the entire nation, and especially older white America, who were surprised by the success of this league outshining its #1 sport, its crown and jewel. And moreover, when Jackie Robinson was integrated into the league, they looked at white America might have looked at the younger generation and said, my kids are going to grow up and see these black players on the same field as white players, and it's going to be normal. And if this can happen in baseball, and one of the things that we hold most precious in this country, it can happen in other vacuums in the nation. And similarly, African Americans saw that again as hope and as a brighter future. You put us on the same playing field as a white man, and we can succeed and we can accomplish and we can compete with them. And that really goes into how maybe what Jackie Robinson wanted to accomplish when he came into the league, when he signed that contract with the Brooklyn Dodgers. He didn't just sign a contract because he wanted to play with white players because he loved them so much. He wanted to be that figure, that role model for a little black kid somewhere in the United States who wanted to grow up and reach for the stars and play in Major League Baseball, and who didn't want to be restricted by the color of his skin. So that's what you could say Jackie Robinson did it for. He wanted to be more than just a baseball player. He was really playing and performing and speaking for an entire race, for future generations, and for people like him, for African Americans who wanted to accomplish more. And so today I talked to you about, I mentioned the origins of the Negro League, how it came into existence. Secondly, how the Negro League and players from the Negro League influenced the culture of baseball. And lastly, how, again, it was more than just baseball. They really changed the landscape of and influenced racial relations in the United States. And it was it happened before the Civil Rights Movement, so it kind of leapfrogged into the Civil Rights Movement and it influenced the entire nation, the entire United States as a whole. And that's my speech on the Negro League and the history of it and why it's important. Thank you very much.